Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1680. The topic is nutrition and the title is Easy Food Substitutions to Create Caloric Change. This topic came up with one of the discussions with one of my trainers, like a trainer that I train, and he was talking about how he can modify how basically he wants to have a very consistent schedule and then just modify what he eats within each meal to push his calories up or down, depending on whether he's in a season of wanting to build a weight or season of wanting to lose weight, get leaner, kind of depending on what he wanted to do. He just wanted some easy, quick food substitutions. So to give some examples, and then I'll give like kind of more broad-based answer, is if I look through some things that I typically eat. I have a high calorie option for like daytime meals that's pretty quick and easy to make. I eat it on a regular basis. So a high calorie option for me would be 8 ounces of ground sirloin. And if like I'm going to have a lot of numbers in here, so just listen for the concept. Don't worry about the specific numbers. But I have 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin. I cook that up in a frying pan. I make biscuits, like Pillsbury biscuits, and with 8 ounces of raw sirloin, I have 4 biscuits with that, and half a cup of cheese. So essentially, I cut the biscuit in half. I put on like 2 ounces or so of beef, sprinkle some cheese on it, and that makes what I call a burger biscuit. So burger biscuit, if I have all of that, so it's the 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin, I then cook it up. I put it spread out over 4 biscuits with half a cup of cheese kind of sprinkled across all of the biscuits. I'll then add some ketchup and mustard, not enough to really add up a lot of calories, but that is one meal. That's a good bit of food if you try to eat that. That's one meal. That's 1,280 calories with 71 grams of protein. And I would typically have that twice a day and then have other meals. So these are my 2 like midday meals. I would still have a breakfast, I'd still have a dinner, and I'd still have usually like a high protein, like something at the end of the day, and then also a protein shake. I eat a lot. I'm 290 pounds right now, so I eat a lot of food. But this is an example of a high calorie meal. Ground sirloin, 4 biscuits, half cup cheese. Now, when I want to clean up, maybe I want to reduce my calories a little bit, I can have the same 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin. I'll swap out the biscuits for microwavable jasmine rice. Now, the bags of microwavable jasmine rice that I use have 480 grams of rice in it. So the weight of the rice is 480 grams. And then I'll usually put on like a low-calorie sauce. Sometimes I just kind of do like a sprinkling of different like spices and stuff, and then I just eat that as is. Now, that meal has only 845 calories and 50 grams of protein. So that is 400 calories less, essentially. And all I did was I swapped the biscuits and cheese for jasmine rice. I kept the meat. If I'm already cooking the meat, I'm eating the meat, totally fine. Just keep that the same. I just swap out the biscuits and the cheese for microwavable jasmine rice. It cooks in 90 seconds. Super freaking easy. And that would be a good meal. I can also push my calories down even more if I want and switch over to 8 ounces of raw sirloin steak. So rather than ground sirloin, I go with 8 ounces raw sirloin steak. I cook that up and maybe add vegetables. I have some asparagus or some broccoli, something that's around 100 calories worth of vegetables. That gives me 550 calories and 44 grams of protein. So that's about 300 calories less. So you can have these meals where you switch from ground sirloin and biscuits and cheese to ground sirloin and jasmine rice to then just steak and vegetables. If you notice within those substitutions, the first thing, I just simply kept the meat the same and I swapped out my carb source. I swapped from biscuits down to rice, and that reduced my calories. The third meal, if you notice, I changed from ground sirloin to sirloin steak. The reason why is because at that amount, I'm not going to have a lot of volume in that food, in that meal, if it's just the meat and vegetables. To make that meal feel more filling, I would actually turn it into a steak, because then I have to cut it apart, I have to chew it. There's a lot more action involved in eating steak than there is in ground sirloin. Part of the reason why I use ground sirloin in my bigger meals is because it's easier to eat. You can just shove it in, you don't have to chew a lot, so my jaw doesn't get sore. I can actually get a lot more in before my body realizes how much food I've put in. So there's a lot of small manipulative little changes you can make to make a meal feel more filling or less filling, depending on how many calories you want to get in. If you have a low-calorie meal but you want to feel filling so you don't feel hungry afterwards, there are certain things you do. If you have a really high-calorie meal but you have to be able to eat it really fast and in the smallest amount of food possible, otherwise you feel too full to get it in, there are certain things you do. So there are changes you make with what you eat, not only to get the calories that you would need changed, but also just the feel of how the meal is eating it. So let's say you look at that last meal and you're like, I want a low-calorie option because I'm trying to lose some body fat. But steak and vegetables, man, there's just not enough there. I want something more filling than that. So what you can do is you can substitute make some changes, basically. So what I would do is I can go up to the higher volume meal, which will be the 8 ounces of ground sirloin and the 500 grams of jasmine rice. That's a pretty filling meal. But if I want to reduce the calories, I could just substitute the meat. So this is why we said like easy food substitutions in the title. Instead of 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin, I can use 8 ounces of raw chicken breast. I'm going to get pretty much equivalent protein, actually more protein, but I'm going to bring my calories down about 130 calories. So I get a lower calories out of that medium calorie option, but I get to eat the rice, which makes it feel more filling. So by substituting the meat, I reduce the calories, which then allows me to swap that reduced calories in part to change from vegetables to rice. I know I might lose everyone in some of the things I'm saying, but I'm going to come back and catch you here in a second. The overall idea is you make food changes to manipulate the calories. So an example would be is maybe you like what I'm telling you in a meal. You're like, I don't want to eat that much red meat every day. So you would switch from 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin to 8 ounces of raw chicken thighs. Pretty equivalent calories, pretty equivalent protein. And you get chicken rather than ground beef. Learning how to make food substitutions is going to be extremely helpful because it adds variety to the foods you can eat, but you don't lose track of making progress. A couple of challenges that I see clients face is they would rather have me just tell me what to eat, tell me what to eat, tell me what to eat. It's not going to work long term. When I work with people, I want them to crush their goals, but I also want them to learn how to eat so they're never too far away from their goals. So say I help somebody lose 40 pounds. I don't ever want them to gain those 40 pounds back, ever. So I want to help you be successful in losing 40 pounds, but I want to teach you along the way. I want you to learn why you were 40 pounds overweight and how to avoid that. And that's why I like having people, if they want a specific meal plan to start and say, tell me what to eat, I'll tell them. But I also give them substitution options. So, okay, at this meal, for example, let's have, 8 ounces ground sirloin, let's have 500 grams cooked rice. But you can swap the ground sirloin anytime you want for chicken thighs. That would be fine. You can swap the jasmine rice for maybe potatoes if you want, or pasta. You just want to equate the calories. And especially in carb-based or energy-based foods, like breads, bagels, pasta, rice, things that are just going to give us carbs, there's going to be very small protein difference. In the meats, depending on how, like from fatty to non-fatty or from lean to fatty meats, how much fat content there is in the meat. It'll change some of the protein content, but it's not going to change too much. So some of these substitutions, they're not perfectly equal. There will be, plus or minus, 5 grams of protein, plus or minus 20, 30 calories. There'll be some small changes. But that's why with my clients, I have them work within ranges. So I typically have them do a calorie range target of, say, 200 calories a day, like in variance. So maybe their goal is 2,000 to 2,200 calories. We have a 200 calorie variance because, number one, you're going to vary every day if you try to change any amount of food. And number two, there's no need to be that precise. So whether they eat 2,050 calories or 2,150 calories makes very little difference over the long term. Very little. So we don't get too nitpicky about small little details. We want sustained improvement over time. Like one of my clients, for example, she was doing a diet before, and she ended up having, like when she ate throughout the day, she had 1 gram of fat more than what that coach gave her calorie total, grams of fat total, grams of carb total, sugar total, protein total, sodium total, and then just said, make sure you make these numbers. What the hell? Holy crap, that's a lot to track, And the client ended up being 1 gram of fat over. That coach berated her and questioned her dedication, questioned how tough she could be mentally. Maybe she wasn't cut out, to be doing this, and she might need to find a different coach if she can't be dedicated and serious about what she's doing. Screw that coach. That coach, oh my gosh. You need to go to anger management class and you need to find a different career. There is no reason to make somebody feel bad if they make a mistake in food. Period. Period. That's a statement all on its own. And to do it over 1 gram of fat is absolutely asinine. So stupid. It makes that trainer look like an absolute moron. Because 1 gram of fat does not make or break somebody's diet progress. Absolutely not. And sure as hell, you are not going to question somebody's character over 1 gram of fat. Absolute bullshit. Ugh, that fires me up. Because this is like what I do, and I can't stand that somebody abuses people, with the same name of profession that what I do. So it just drives me insane. But knowing these food substitutions, they're super helpful. Not only can it allow for more variety with what we eat, more freedom while staying still within parameters that make us successful and help us progress towards our goal, but they can actually better reflect like the foods that you want to eat at that time of the meal. And what I mean by that is we recently had a podcast, podcast 1676, so just a couple podcasts ago. It was titled Managing Portion Control to Match Hunger. So if you're super hungry at a meal, you could pick low density foods and you end up eating really a large amount of food before it really adds up to any significant amount of calories. If you're stuffed and you do not want to eat, or you're just not hungry, you would eat high density foods, so that way the volume of food you have to eat is very small, and you can still reach your goal. So understanding how to make food substitutions, it's overwhelmingly beneficial in so many ways. One of the things that I would suggest is, if you want to learn how to make food substitutions, is to track your foods on a food tracking app like MyFitnessPal, MyMacros. There's like 4 million of them out there. I wish I could make my own. I've actually looked into it. Making an app is quite expensive, but I'm getting there, saving up. But I want to make an app that I think better reflects the reality of food, like in what it really takes to make progress, but in a sustainable way and in a mentally and emotionally healthy way. I know how to do it. I'm going to keep my secrets to myself a little bit because my wife and I have already looked into how to make the app and all this stuff, and I've talked with app developers and whatnot. But in general, one of the big issues that most apps have, like what they do incorrectly, is they give you a specific number. They say, based on your body weight, based on your activity level, based on your goals, you should eat 1,734 calories a day. Good luck. Good God, it's so dumb because no one is going to get exactly 1,734 calories every single day. It's absolutely stupid, and it's so unnecessary. So unnecessary. So I really wish these apps would emphasize a range. So, for example, something as simple as if it's 1,734, just give the person 1,700 to 1,800. Give them at least a 100 calorie range because that's more realistic. And then people won't feel like failures if they're slightly under or slightly over. And that's just demoralizing. It's frustrating. That's why people don't stick with apps, partly because it's I never get the numbers right and I just feel like a loser every day. And it's damn, why did they set up with a singular number? That's so stupid. So stupid. But after I just went off on why they're stupid, I want you to use them. How about a good transition there? I want you to use them because it can help you be aware of what's in your food, and then you can better understand, okay, if I change this food to this food, what does that do? So, for example, if I change from ground sirloin to chicken thighs, and I'm oh, it's chicken, I'm going to reduce calories. No, you're not. So 8 ounces of raw ground sirloin is 375 calories. 8 ounces of raw chicken thighs is 360 calories. It's only a 15 calorie difference. So chicken isn't necessarily less calories than beef. That's helpful to know, right? There are a lot of these types of changes that we would think changing from this to this is healthy, as in it'll make a caloric reduction when it's not actually true. Or you'll think, well, I can't have potatoes. There's too many carbs in potatoes. Instead, I'm going to eat this quinoa that's disgusting. No, you can have potatoes. You just might not be able to have an equal amount. You can have a plate full of quinoa, but maybe you only have a half a plate of potatoes. But you're more likely to be consistent with your diet if you can have potatoes than quinoa. So it's so helpful to learn these things, to understand how to make food substitutions, because everyone needs some freedom within their diet. You need to have the freedom to choose foods you like. You need to have the freedom to choose foods that are available to you. It's just so beneficial, so necessary. So I really would encourage you to use a food tracking app. Start playing with substitutions. Say, okay, normally I have, broccoli at this meal. If I'm tired of broccoli, can I switch over and have asparagus? I'd like to have asparagus. What does it look like when I make the change from broccoli to asparagus? Does it really change my calories? Does it change the carbohydrates? Does it change anything to sugar? What happens when I make that change? If you have a very strict program, like nutrition program, using a tracking app and then swapping one or two things here or there is really helpful because you can start to really develop options within your meals and say, oh, okay, I don't have to eat broccoli at every meal. I can substitute different vegetables and it's really going to give me still the same amount of calories. I'm going to have very similar fiber. There's small deviations that you can make that allow for meals to be more enjoyable, but they don't create any deviation in your progress. So some easy substitutions, like protein substitutions, is if you swap, from fatty meats to lean meats, you're going to reduce calories, but your protein's going to stay relatively the same. You can go from full fat products to low fat or fat free products. So maybe you like cheese, just do a fat free cheese. If you like, Greek yogurt, do a fat-free Greek yogurt. Just change the fat content. Whether it's a meat or a dairy product like cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, things like that. Those are pretty easy changes to make. When it comes to carbohydrate changes, like substitutions, that's really more reflected in the nutrient density. And what I mean by that is some carbohydrates, you have to eat a lot of them to get any calories. Think of lettuce. But some carbohydrates, if you eat a small amount, that can add up really fast. Think of beans. Like black beans, kidney beans, lima beans. 1 cup of lima beans is 300 calories. you'd have to eat like 4 heads of lettuce to get to 100 calories. There are certain foods and carbohydrate based that they're more nutriently dense. They have more calories per volume of food. If you're trying to get more calories into your meals, you want to pick high density foods: beans, bagels, pasta, potatoes, rice, things like that. If you're looking for low density, if you want to reduce the calories but still feel like you're eating a lot, then that would be the basic vegetables like broccoli, cucumbers, asparagus, iceberg lettuce, kale, like things like that. And you can check this by just checking substitutions in your tracking app. And again, you'll notice all these substitutions, they're not 100% equal. There are small deviations like 15 calories here and there, 2 or 3 grams of protein here or there. And again, that's okay because really we want ranges. So when you use a tracking app, whatever number it gives you, give yourself like plus or minus 100 calories. Give yourself plus or minus maybe 10, 15 grams of protein. So if it tells you eat 100 grams of protein, if you're in between like 90 to 110, you're totally fine. So give yourself a little bit of leeway. Create a window for yourself. And that will help you feel okay with the variation of numbers that you will get from day to day whenever you do create variations in your foods. But again, I'm telling you that if your calories deviate within 200 calories every day, you're freaking acing it. You're doing fine. If your grams of protein deviate within 20 grams of protein every day, totally doing fine. It is absolutely no need for you to be more precise than that. You will still get great, great, great results. So learning food substitutions, as long as we stay within our target windows, calories and protein, it can help us better match what we eat with what we like and what's available to us, what's easy to cook, what's convenient. It helps improve consistency, sustainability, and our mental and emotional health through the process. Okay. Hopefully that was fun to hear. Hopefully it gave you some ideas. If you have any follow-up questions, just reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you like today's podcast, please share it. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so with donations. It's a great way to support the podcast. Help me keep doing this every day. Just help cover some of the costs we have for all the different hosting sites and whatnot. If you want to provide to that, you can donate on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Even just $5 a month, it adds up, helps a lot. Thank you to those who do it. I do sincerely appreciate it. Also, if you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us, please follow us, on Instagram and on YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.